Assalamu alaikum students. I hope you are fine. Today we will start a new lesson, that is whistling of birds. The writer of the lesson is D.H. Lawrence. D.H. Lawrence D.H. Lawrence discusses the two seasons in this essay. One is spring and the other is winter. He tells us that winter brings death and spring brings life to the world. So let's see what he shares in his essay. Whistling of Birds is a very touching essay which removes our imagination. So this essay is it tweaks our imagination. It makes us imagine things. He writes in such a way that we can imagine the things that he is writing about. The writer has presented a contrast between spring season and winter season. So he brings contrast. Contrast means when we are comparing opposite qualities of two things. So he compares the opposite qualities of winter season with spring seasons and tells us that they are both opposite from each other. Lawrence presents a contrast of the beauties of spring with the destruction of winter. So what is he contrasting? The beauties of spring with the destruction of winter. In his mind, winter destroys everything. He uses vivid images to show the disastrous effects of winter and paints a real picture of death. Vivid means clear. So he creates clear images with his words and he shows us how winter destroys things, and he presents a clear picture of death, that how death happens and how it looks like. So this essay is about life and death, and it is about destruction and creation, and it is about spring and winter. So through nature and two contrasting seasons, the writer represents the realities of life and death. The writer says that winter is the season of death. Why is he saying that? Because the region that he is describing, there is snow everywhere. And in winter, there are extreme cold temperatures, and because of snow, everything freezes. Frost is the condition of snow when snow becomes extremely hard due to extreme cold, and everything dies in frost. Birds, plants, trees, everything dies because of frost and extreme cold temperatures. All colors disappear. Why do all colors disappear? Because snow covers everything and everything becomes white. So all the other colors are hidden by the white color of snow. So it looks like as if every color left the area or the world. Everything changes into whiteness. Water, lakes, pools, and streams freeze and plants wither and die. So water bodies like lakes, pools, and streams, they become frozen because of extreme cold. Their water freezes, and plants first they wither. Wither means that they wilt. They become weak and their leaves turn gray and then they die. The plants die because of extreme cold. The earth is strangled. Strangle means when you squeeze someone's throat and the person cannot breathe. So there is so much snow on earth that it looks as if the earth cannot breathe, and the snow and the winter are strangling the earth and they are not allowing the earth to breathe. Thousands of birds are killed by that intense cold. Intense means severe, extreme. So the cold is so extreme that it kills birds, and not only a few birds but thousands of birds, meaning countless number of birds die because of the cold. So winter season brings death, it brings frost, everything freezes, plants and birds die in winter season. Everywhere bloody clocks of birds and torn carcasses of birds are seen. Cloak means the shawl that somebody wears in winter. So birds are covered in blood, so it looks as if they are wearing clots of blood. Carcasses are dead bodies, so the carcasses are torn, the birds are dead, and their body parts are removed from their bodies. So it looks that the birds are bloodied and their dead bodies are torn apart. And wherever you look, you can see the dead bodies of the birds around you. Birds die out, and their remains in the bushes and ground cast the shadows of death. So all these birds die, and their dead bodies are lying on the ground, under the bushes, under the trees, and it looks as if they are representing death as a shadow. So the writer compares death or equates death with shadow and spring with light. Death seems to hover all about, but this lasts only for some time, then the change comes. So, for some time, it looks as if death is everywhere and no one can escape this death, and this death will never leave the earth. But then the change comes. The change means the spring season. The seasons change and the new season begins. Life is a continuous process, seasons also move in a cycle. So, the writer says that life is continuous. There is nothing permanent in life. When there is spring, then winter has to come, and when there is winter, the spring has to come. Nothing can stop these changing seasons and the cycle of life. So even when there is death, the process of change begins and the arrival of spring starts. If winter is death, spring is life. So he contrasts winter and spring and says that winter represents death and spring represents life. It is the arrival of spring which is the symbol of life. So when the spring arrives, it represents life. It looks as if now life has arrived on earth. Warm and soothing, little gleams of sunshine, new world transition, new regime, and many other images are employed to present creative power of spring. So all these words are used by the writer to represent or describe spring. So when he says that winter is cold, he says spring is warm and soothing. When winter is shadow, little gleams of sunshine are used to describe spring. New world transition. Transition means change. So the world changes into a new world. New regime. Regime means government. So first there was the government or rule of death and winter. Now there is rule of life and spring in the world. And spring has the power to create. So new things, new birds, lambs, flowers, butterflies, they all come in the spring as if they are created by the spring. He moralizes that every cloud has a silver lining. So the moral that the writer presents is that when there is something that is bad, it brings something good in the world. So winter is bad, but it brings good, that is spring in the world. It is winter behaving like a general who has been beaten now by the neutral force, that is the spring. So he compares this arrival of spring and leaving of winter as a war, and he says that winter is a general who is defeated and spring is a general who wins the battle and changes the world, and it conquers the land and it behaves as if it has all the rule and authority on the land and the world. So in this lesson, the writer compares winter with spring. He contrasts them. He tells us that they are totally opposite from each other. Winter destroys, spring brings life, spring creates, winter is death, spring is life, and everything changes in the spring season, and everything becomes new and beautiful in the spring season. That is all for today. In the next lesson, we will discuss other points of the lesson. As it is an important lesson, we will discuss its other aspects and other messages of the writer in the next lesson. That is all for today. Have a good day. I hope you have understood the lesson. If there are any questions, you can ask. Allah Hafiz.